has a dream. For some, it may be to become an athlete or a famous musician. But for Amy Purdy, it was to travel the world and snowboard. This speech was given on November 2011, and it describes her life and the event that changed her life forever. Living Beyond Limits by Amy Purdy. If your life were a book and you were the author, how would you want your story to go? That's the question that changed my life forever. Growing up in the hot Las Vegas desert, all I ever wanted was to be free. I would daydream about traveling the world, living in a place where it snowed, and I would picture the stories that I would go on to tell. At the age of 19, the day after I graduated high school, I moved to a place where it snowed and became a massage therapist. And with this job, all I needed were my hands and my massage table, and I could go anywhere. For the first time in my life, I felt free, independent, and completely in control of my life. That is, until my life took a detour. I went home from work early one day with what I thought was the flu. And less than 24 hours later, I was in the hospital on life support with less than a 2% chance of living. Later, as I lay in a coma, the doctors diagnosed me with bacterial meningitis, a vaccine-preventable blood infection. Over the course of 2.5 months, I lost my spleen, my kidneys, the hearing in my left ear, and both of my legs below the knees. As my parents wheeled me out of the hospital, I thought the worst was over, until weeks later when I saw my new legs for the first time. The calves were bulky blocks of metal with pipes bolted together for the ankles, and a yellow rubber foot with a raised rubber line from the toe to the ankle to look like a vein. I didn't know what to expect, but I was not expecting this. With my mom by my side and tears streaming down our faces, I strapped on these chunky legs and stood up. They were so painful and so confining that all I could think was, how was I ever going to travel the world in these things? How was I ever going to live the life full of adventure and stories? And how was I ever going to snowboard again? That day, I went home and crawled into bed, and this is what my life looked like for the next few months. Me, passed out, escaping from reality, with my legs by my side. But I knew that if I had to move forward, I would have to let go of the old Amy and learn to embrace the new Amy. And that's when it dawned on me that I didn't have to be 5'5" anymore. I could be as tall as I wanted. And if I ever snowboarded again, my feet aren't going to get cold. And best of all, I could buy every shoe on the sales rack. And that's exactly what I did. So there were benefits here. And that's when I remembered that life-defining question. If my life is a book and I am the author, how would I want my story to go? And that's when I started to daydream, and I could picture myself helping others through my journey of snowboarding again. And I didn't just see myself carving down a mountain of powder. I could actually feel it. I could feel the wind against my face and the beat of my racing heart. And at that very moment, I knew that a new chapter in my life had began. 4 months later, I was back up on a snowboard, although things didn't go quite as expected. At one point, I traumatized all the skiers on the chairlift when my knees wouldn't bend at the right time, and my legs, still attached to my snowboard, went flying down the mountain, and I was on top of the mountain still. I was so shocked. I was as shocked as everybody else. But I knew that if I could find the right pair of feet, that I could do this again. And that's when I realized that our borders and our obstacles can only do two things. 1, stop us in our tracks, or 2, force us to get creative. I did a year of research, still couldn't figure out what kind of legs I could snowboard in. I couldn't find any resources that would help me, so I decided to make a pair myself. My leg maker and I sat down and put random parts together and finally came up with a design that I could snowboard in. Rusted bolts, rubber, wood, and neon pink duct tape. It was this and the best 21st birthday gift I could ever receive. that allowed me to follow my dreams. A kidney from my dad. At this point, I went back to snowboarding. I went back to working, and then I went back to school. In 2005, I co-founded a nonprofit organization to help people with physical disabilities get involved in physical sports. I had the opportunity to go to South Africa and put shoes on thousands of children so that they could go to school. And just this past February, I won 2 back-to-back World Cup gold medals, which made me the highest-ranked adaptive female snowboarder in the world. 11 years ago, when I had lost my legs, I didn't know what to expect. But if you had to ask me today if I would ever change my situation, I would have to say no. Because my legs have not disabled me. If anything, they've enabled me. They've forced me to rely on my imagination and believe in the possibilities. And that's why I believe that our imagination can be used as tools to help us throughout our lives. It's about believing in our dreams and facing our fears head on that allows us to live our lives beyond our limits. And although today is about innovation without borders, I have to say that in my life, innovation was only possible because of my borders. I have learned that our borders and our obstacles are where the actual ends, but also where the imagination and story begins. So the thought that I would like to challenge you with today is that instead of thinking of our obstacles and borders as something negative or bad, we should think of them as something that is a blessing or a magnificent gift that can help us throughout our lives. Because it's not about breaking through our borders, it's about pushing off of them and seeing what amazing places they might bring us. Thank you.